Hey guys, what's up? It's Katie and I'm back with another Marvel Contest of Champions video, and I am here with some info about a hood buff. Yes, the hood is getting buffed. Not that he really needed it, but Kabam is buffing the hood, and well, you'll see. I'm not exactly thrilled with the buff that hood got. So let's go ahead and take a look at this buff. So first, let's talk about Hood's invisibility. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to look at him pre-buff and post-buff, how he is on paper, and compare the two. So first, let's look at his invisibility because this is a big portion of the Hood's kit. So pre-buff, we all know he gains invisibility for 8 seconds. Contact hits have a 45% chance to miss. Non-contact hits have a 95% chance to miss, and it's increased in crit damage rating. Now, post-buff, he gains an invisibility buff for 8 seconds with a cooldown of 6 seconds. Now, before you could not, nullify Hood's invisibility. Now you can. So you can stagger Hood's invisibility. So that's kind of a big thing here. Now he has the same increased crit damage rating, and opponents now have a 120% chance to miss, and each miss attack decreases miss chance by 20% until invisibility ends. So basically, the more that they miss, the decrease in his miss chance goes. So it starts out really good and then it decreases. And I'm not really a fan of this. I think they should have increased his chance for missed attacks to be just like a flat out 90% instead of adding this 120% chance to miss and then each missed attack decreasing the chance by 20%. That I think would have been a better buff than what they have done here. But let's continue on, shall we? We shall. All right, let's talk about heavy attacks because this is important for how he is post-buff. All right, so pre-buff, the first hit refreshes any shock, hex, stagger, or bleed debuff the opponent has. Post-buff, pause all bleed debuffs on the opponent for 5 seconds. Cause all hexes to expire immediately with 75% potency. Now, this is important when we talk about his loaded bullets, which we'll talk about later on, because if you stack up those hexes and fire a heavy, you can do some solid burst damage, but we'll talk about that in a minute. All right, so now let's talk about crit hits. So pre-buff, he had an 88% chance to stagger the opponent for 7.5 seconds. The next time a staggered opponent triggers a buff, that buff and all other buffs triggered at the same time will be nullified, and when the stagger expires, the Hood will siphon a portion of the opponent's health. Well, now with the Hood's post buff, he has a 100% chance to stagger the opponent for 5 seconds. Staggered opponents cannot gain buffs. Okay, so they increased the chance to stagger, but they decreased the time. Now, when this stagger ends, it inflicts direct damage on the opponent and heals the Hood for a matching amount. So that is a nice addition that they added into there. So I do like that. All right, so now let's continue on. Let's talk about his special. So the special one hasn't really changed all that much. You've got the shock for 7.5 seconds. And then if this shock expires after lasting its full duration, 100% chance to stun the opponent. So the stun timer has increased from 2.5 seconds to 3 seconds. So that's kind of nice. I don't think it was really necessary to increase the timer, but hey, we'll go with it. It'll allow you to throw in those heavies a lot better to increase that hex damage. Okay, let's talk about the special 2, because this special 2, what they did here, I'm not a fan of, because they removed a really important function of the Hood's kit. So pre-buff, he hexes the opponent, reducing ability accuracy by 65% and fate sealing them for 6.5 seconds. Fate seal immediately nullifies all buffs and prevents any new buffs from activating. It instantly triggers invisibility. Now, this fate seal was important, especially if you were fighting against champs like, Vision Arcus or Annihilus or any one of those guys, Medusa. Hood used to be the Medusa Slayer back in the day. So now let's talk about him post-buff. The final shot spends 5 bullets to grant 100% chance to inflict a hex vulnerability debuff, increasing the potency of all new and existing hexes by 50% until a hex ends. So they reduced the ability, they took away the ability accuracy reduction, flat out. At the end of the attack, activate invisibility. So they took away his Fate Seal. His Fate Seal was a big important part of his kit. I know a lot of people who ranked up the hood specifically for that Fate Seal. Now, I that increasing the stagger and that sort of thing, increasing the chance of stagger is Kabam's way around of dealing with the Fate Seal being removed. But I feel like this was a big misstep with Kabam in buffing the hood. I haven't played with him yet, so I don't know exactly how it works, but when you remove an important function of a champion's kit like his Fate Seal, it may make him worse. So I don't really know. I'm not a huge fan of this. This is a big deal. I know people who have specifically ranked up the hood specifically for this in order to deal with problematic nodes. So I am not a fan of this either. I really liked the hood's Fate Seal. I loved his stagger. This makes him more of a stagger king, but his Fate Seal was really solid for me. And this, I'm not a fan of this, but let's continue on. All right, so let's talk about his special 3. Pre-buff deals 75% increased damage for each full bar of power the opponent has at the time of impact, 100% chance to inflict bleed, dealing direct damage over 6 seconds. So they increased with this, they increased the attack rating for each full bar of power, and they increased the bleed by a flat amount. It's no longer dealing it's no longer dealing a percentage of damage. It's by a flat amount. So I'm okay with this. So this is fine. They really didn't have to change the special 3. So I'm okay with this. All right, now let's talk about signature ability, because I'm not really a fan of this either. I mean, I think it's going to be okay, but I think they should have left his signature ability as is. So pre-buff, while invisibility is on cooldown, the hood becomes stun immune and his basic attacks have a 65% chance at max sig to steal 10% of the opponent's power. Now post-buff, while invisible, the hood becomes immune to all stun effects. So they basically switched that, right? So no longer it's when the invisibility is on cooldown, it's when you're actually invisible. Firing a bullet while invisible has a 45% chance to steal 10% of the opponent's current power, gaining twice that amount in the process. So I get why they decreased the chance down to 45% if you're gonna double the amount in the process. But I think they should have just left it either at 65% and increased the 10% to 20% or something along those lines. I think that would have been better than just reducing the chance and then doubling the amount stolen. So I'm not a fan of this. I think they either should have left his signature ability as is or increased the percentage stolen and left it at 65%. That's how I think they should have done this. So, but let's continue on. All right, now let's talk about these Hex Pistols, because I was talking a lot about these bullets and I'm sure you guys are like, what are you talking about? So basically, the hood has these things called Hex Pistols. Of course, you see them in the picture here. And then he's got 28 loaded bullets and he has a max loaded bullets of 42. Now, the hood's bullets persist from fight to fight within a quest. So they're going to be persistent charges. So whenever you nullify a buff, you load 2 bullets. And anytime you make the opponent miss while invisible, you load 1 bullet when the invisibility ends. Now, medium attacks and special 2, 100% chance to fire a bullet and inflict a stacking hex lasting 12 seconds. Each hex deals a burst of energy damage when it expires and is refreshed when a new hex is gained. So, remember before when I was talking about how it's important to weave in heavies with the hood? So this is where it comes from. So anytime you have those hexes expire, i.e. when you land a heavy, you're gonna deal a burst of energy damage. So you can get those hexes on and deal a burst of energy damage for some solid burst damage. Okay, so now let's talk about synergies, because the only synergy that they buffed here was the one with Joe Fixit. So they added into this one Kingpin with him, and this one they made it so all villain champions on the team gain plus 150 armor rating, plus 150 crit rating, plus 5% perfect block chance, and plus 5% health rating. So they basically took everything together and just smashed it into one. Then they also added in Tigra and Doctor Strange in with Punisher and Dr. Voodoo for 155 crit rate, plus 155 crit rating. And then they added Terrax and Taskmaster in with Loki and Iron Patriot for plus 5% perfect block chance. So I do like what they did with adding Kingpin into the Joe Fixit and increasing that, because before I think it was just armor rating. So this is kind of nice, but that is it for the hood buff. Like I said, I'm not particularly thrilled about what Kabam did with the hood. I'm interested to see how it's gonna play out. I could be totally wrong, right? I could be wrong. This is all on paper. I haven't got to play around with him at all. But I gotta say, I'm not exactly thrilled with how they buffed Hood. Hood, in my opinion, didn't really need a buff to begin with. He was an underrated champion. Most people really didn't have him, but I loved the Hood. And I kind of think Kabam did my boy dirty. I think they did. But we'll just have to wait and see. But anyways, guys, that's all that I got. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of Kabam removing the Hood's Fate Seal? Do you think they took a big misdirection here? And what do you think is going to be the repercussions for people who ranked up the Hood just for that Fate Seal? Let me know in the comments below and let's discuss. As always, guys, thanks so much for watching and enjoy this quick word from Kevin Smith.
Hey man, it's me, Kevin Smith, and if you enjoyed the mediocre Mcoc video full of scrub gameplay, then show Katy some love by hitting like and subscribe, man. Katy don't ask for much. Katy did ask for this. Katy did. So, do like Katy did and bug people and get you to like and subscribe, man. She's doing that Mcoc beautifully. Not mediocre. Katy!